The days following first contact unfolded in a blur of diplomatic meetings and technology demonstrations. Humanity's leaders projected appropriate awe while meticulously documenting every alien interaction. Secretary Chen established a classified directive requiring all human representatives to maintain a specific persona, eager but humble, curious but deferential. "We must appear harmless," he instructed during a secure briefing. "Our greatest advantage is being underestimated." The Zixari welcomed humans aboard their command vessel, a sprawling structure that dwarfed Earth's largest space station. Admiral Caro personally guided the tour, speaking slowly as if addressing children. "This propulsion system operates on principles your scientists will study for centuries," he explained, mandibles clicking with barely concealed superiority. "Perhaps your great-grandchildren will comprehend its basic functions." Dr. Maya Williams, Earth's leading quantum physicist, nodded appreciatively while her augmented contact lenses captured every detail of the engine configuration. "We are honored by your willingness to share such wonders," she replied, her voice carefully calibrated to convey respectful admiration, rather than the fierce calculation occurring behind her eyes. Later that night, in the privacy of their assigned quarters, the human delegation compared notes. "They classify our muscular system as inefficient because it lacks the regenerative properties of their exoskeletons," reported Dr. Patel. Reviewing biological assessments, the Zixari had carelessly left accessible on their network. "They believe our endurance is our only physical advantage, but consider it irrelevant in an age of automated labor and combat drones." General Rivera nodded grimly. "Their military assessment concludes we're negligible threats individually and organizationally primitive. They've logged our nuclear capabilities as quaint preliminary fission/fusion technologies." Secretary Chen stared through the viewport at Earth's blue sphere. War-ravaged continents showed dark patches visible even from orbit. "And what of their vulnerabilities?" Dr. Williams displayed a holographic projection captured from the engine room. "Their technology is advanced but predictable. They've relied on the same fundamental principles for millennia. No radical innovation in centuries. They can't conceive of methodologies beyond their established paradigms." "And psychologically?" Chen pressed. Ambassador Okafor smiled slightly. "They're complacent. 3,000 years of technological superiority over every species they've encountered has left them incapable of recognizing potential threats. They see primitive technology and assume primitive minds." Chen considered this information, then made the decision that would alter humanity's destiny. "We accept their invitation to join the Concordat, but with conditions. We request education, cultural exchange, and limited technology transfer. Exactly what they expect from an eager, developing species." "And beneath that?" General Rivera asked. "Beneath that," Chen replied, "we learn everything. We adapt everything. We become the perfect infiltrators." Before departing, Admiral Caro presented Earth with a gesture of goodwill. Atmospheric processors to help repair damage from the war, medical technology to address radiation poisoning, and education modules to accelerate human development toward galactic citizenship standards. As the Zixari fleet prepared to depart, Caro met with Chen one final time. "Your species shows admirable enthusiasm," the Admiral said. "In time, humans will find their place in the cosmic order." Chen bowed deeply, a gesture the Zixari cultural database indicated showed submission and gratitude. "We eagerly await that day, Admiral. Humanity will certainly surprise you." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in amusement at what he perceived as charming naivety. "I doubt that, Secretary. After 30 millennia of galactic exploration, very little surprises us anymore." Chen maintained his deferential posture as the Admiral departed, his eyes downcast, concealing the cold calculation within them. The humans had already begun to catalog weaknesses, identify opportunities, and map their path forward. The galaxy had indeed seen nothing coming. Dr. Elena Kowalski's wrists ached as she polished the laboratory's crystalline sequencing arrays for the third time that day. The Pellerin scientists barely acknowledged her presence, their six-fingered hands manipulating genetic structures with casual mastery while discussing breakthroughs in hushed, melodic tones. "Terminal cleaning complete, honored researchers," she announced, using the formal address required of service personnel. The lead scientist, distinguished geneticist Marin, flicked two of his secondary appendages in dismissal without looking up from his work. As she gathered her cleaning supplies, Elena's augmented peripheral vision captured the complete genetic sequence displayed on the main terminal, a Dravax muscle enhancement formula the Pellerins were modifying for their own physiology. Her wetware implant, disguised as a simple entertainment module, recorded every detail for later analysis. "You missed a spot, human," called a junior researcher, pointing to a perfectly clean section of floor. The others chittered with amusement. Elena smiled apologetically and scrubbed the spotless surface. "My deepest apologies." The casual humiliation was a small price for access. Her real work would begin after her shift, in the cramped quarters she shared with three other human service specialists in the station's lower levels. Across the galaxy, Commander John Chen refilled drink receptacles at the Vekara military headquarters. The Zixarid generals continued their strategy session as if he were invisible. The hegemony shield configuration leaves them vulnerable to quantum disruption at these coordinates, General Viss explained, talon touching a holographic battleship. A concentrated burst from our Fifth Fleet could neutralize their entire defensive line. John stumbled slightly, bumping the table. "Forgive my clumsiness, exalted ones," he murmured, bowing deeply. General Kree, the youngest of the command staff, glanced at him with brief suspicion before returning to the discussion. None noticed the microdrone John had deployed during his accident, a device smaller than a dust mote that would map the entire command center and record all strategic discussions for the next 30 days. In the shipyards of Nexus Station, Malik Rahman deliberately failed his neural interface exam for the third time. The Vexeri supervisor buzzed with frustration. "Your cognitive structure is clearly capable of basic comprehension, the crystalline being vibrated. Why do you struggle with simple dimensional calculations?" Malik lowered his eyes. "I am trying, exalted supervisor. Perhaps humans lack the necessary neural architecture." The supervisor's crystalline body flickered with colors indicating dismissal, return to maintenance duty. Some species simply lack aptitude for advanced positions. Malik offered profuse thanks, hiding his satisfaction. His current position granted access to the Concordat's quantum communication arrays, technology human scientists had barely theorized before first contact. Each time he serviced the arrays, his neural implants absorbed precious data about their function. After each shift, these human infiltrators and thousands like them transmitted their gathered intelligence through innocuous personal messages to families back home. Hidden within banal communications about work conditions and minor personal updates were encryption keys, technical specifications, and strategic information. On Earth's moon, the first human quantum computing facility neared completion, built in an underground complex beneath the officially recognized colony. When finished, it would process the tidal wave of information flowing from operatives throughout Concordat space. In her quarters, Elena finalized her analysis of the day's genetic data, comparing it against patterns identified in 17 other genetic research facilities, where humans served in similar capacities. Her conclusions would help scientists at the lunar facility decode the fundamental principles of xenogenetic manipulation. Status update. Came the encrypted message from command. She typed her response. Continuing education proceeding as planned. Hosts remain unaware of curriculum. As she prepared for another day of performative servitude, Elena reminded herself of Secretary Chen's directive, now a mantra among human operatives. They see what they expect to see. Our power lies in their perception. Across Concordat space, humans knelt in service while standing on the cusp of transformation. The human colony on Farsis IV shouldn't have been possible. The planet's surface gravity measured 1.8 times Earth standard, and its atmosphere contained trace elements toxic to most carbon-based life. The Concordat Planetary Development Committee had classified it as marginally habitable with extensive artificial support systems. Yet the human settlement thrived. From orbit, Concordat inspection ships observed modest habitation domes and rudimentary mining operations. The official colony report cited surprising human adaptability to hostile conditions and admirable persistence despite technological limitations. What the reports missed lay beneath. 2 kilometers below the colony's visible structures, Director Amara Singh moved through a sprawling underground complex where the true work occurred. The air filtration systems visible to inspectors processed only 10% of the colony's atmosphere. The mining operation was real but served primarily as cover for the massive excavation. Status report, she demanded, entering the central command hub where dozens of technicians monitored ongoing operations throughout Concordat space. Prometheus network operating at 97% efficiency, reported her chief communications officer. We've established new nodes in the Vega and Arcturus sectors. Data flow has increased 22% this quarter. On the main display, a 3-dimensional representation of the galaxy glowed with thousands of pulsing lights, each representing a human operative transmitting intelligence back to processing centers like this one. The network had begun as simple encrypted messages hidden in standard communications. Now it had evolved into something far more sophisticated. The Mirzak security specialist has been neutralized, Singh asked. Reassigned to the outer territories, confirmed her security chief. Her replacement is the nephew of Concordat Undersecretary Trill, young, ambitious, and decidedly uninterested in communication anomalies. Singh nodded with satisfaction before turning to the facility's most important section. In a chamber surrounded by quantum isolation fields, the first human-built supercomputer with alien-derived technology hummed quietly. Its processing cores utilized crystalline structures reverse-engineered from Vexari neural technology, while its quantum entanglement communication system incorporated principles extracted from Sixeri Ansible designs. Dr. Marcus Chen, grandson of Secretary Chen who had overseen First Contact, monitored the system's operations with reverent attention. The analysis of Concordat defense systems is complete, he announced as Singh approached. We've identified 27 critical vulnerabilities in their primary networks. Most significant is the Sixeri homeworld defense grid. It uses authentication protocols that haven't been updated in over 3 centuries. Singh studied the detailed schematics. They'd grown complacent. They can afford to be, Chen replied. No species has challenged their technological dominance in millennia. Why update what's never been breached? In another section of the facility, geneticists reviewed data gathered from medical facilities throughout Concordat space. Their work combined knowledge from a dozen alien species with human genetic science, developed in isolation from the galaxy's established paradigms. Human Genome Enhancement Project proceeding ahead of schedule, the lead geneticist reported. Phase 1 modifications have been successfully tested and show no detectable markers under standard Concordat medical scans. On a secure communication channel, Singh transmitted the day's progress report to Earth using an encryption algorithm based on the rhythm patterns of extinct Earth whale songs, a cultural reference no alien cryptographer would think to use as a cipher key. Humanity is ready to evolve, she concluded in her report. The question now is whether to maintain our facade of technological inferiority or to begin the next phase. The response from Earth came hours later, transmitted through 67 relay points to obscure its origin. Maintain current protocols. The galaxy still isn't looking in our direction. That remains our greatest advantage. Throughout human colonies across Concordat space, the web continued to grow, invisible threads connecting operatives, gathering the knowledge that would transform humanity from servant to sovereign. Dr. Eliza Sharma checked her chronometer. The Concordat inspection vessel would arrive in 4 hours. Alpha Facility, humanity's most closely guarded secret, was already transitioning to its cover configuration. Holographic projectors activated, transforming the vast underground complex into what appeared to be a primitive mining operation, with basic living quarters. Behind a security door disguised as rough rock wall, Sharma observed 6-year-old Aiden through one-way glass. The boy sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed in concentration as he manipulated quantum probabilities in his mind. On the monitor beside him, complex equations resolved themselves faster than most adult humans could read them. His neural density has increased another 7% this month, reported Dr. Kazuki, checking the latest brain scans. The Merzak telepathic lobe integration is stabilizing without compromising human cognitive flexibility. Sharma nodded with cautious satisfaction. Aiden was one of 300 children in the first generation of enhanced humans. None had ever seen Earth. They had been conceived and born in this facility, their genetic code modified before implantation using knowledge extracted from across the Concordat. "And the physical enhancements?" she asked. "Exceeding projections," Kazuki replied. "The Dravak's muscle fiber density combined with human fine motor control creates capabilities we hadn't anticipated. Test subjects demonstrate strength comparable to juvenile Dravaks while maintaining human dexterity. In the adjacent chamber, teenagers sparred in training exercises that would have been impossible for baseline humans. Their movements blended fighting styles from a dozen species, adapted for human physiology. A 15-year-old girl executed a perfect aerial maneuver, her body moving with preternatural grace, before striking a training dummy with enough force to shatter its reinforced core. "Remarkable," Sharma murmured. "How are they psychologically?" Kazuki's expression grew somber. "That remains our greatest challenge. We're creating a generation that has never known normal human limitations. They understand intellectually that they must conceal their abilities, but emotionally," he trailed off. "They resent it," Sharma finished for him. "Some do. Others understand the necessity. They've been raised on stories of Earth's near destruction and humanity's precarious position. Most accept their role as humanity's vanguard, but we're monitoring for signs of superiority complexes or dissociation from baseline humanity." An alert sounded throughout the facility. The Concordat vessel had arrived ahead of schedule. Within minutes, the transformation was complete. 300 enhanced children disappeared into hidden chambers while holographic projections of standard human miners populated the visible sections of the facility. Sharma adjusted her appearance, removing her lab coat and applying cosmetic blemishes to her face, part of her mining supervisor persona. As she prepared to greet the inspector, she accessed her neural implant to review her cover story once more. The Concordat inspector, a bored-looking Vexari named Trix, barely bothered to leave his ship. His crystalline form shimmered with disinterest as he conducted a perfunctory scan from orbit. "Human mining operation, THX. 1138. State your production metrics," he transmitted. Sharma, now appearing slightly disheveled in mining overalls, responded with carefully calibrated deference. "Honored Inspector, we've extracted 17% more ore than our last reporting period, though we've had some equipment failures that—" Yes, the inspector interrupted. "Your efficiency remains within acceptable parameters. Continue operations." The transmission ended abruptly. The inspector's report, filed automatically to the Concordat database, noted, "Human resource extraction continues at expected primitive efficiency. No anomalies detected. No evidence of advanced technology implementation. Recommend standard inspection interval." As the Concordat ship departed, Sharma watched through a viewport, a small smile playing at her lips. "They see exactly what they expect to see," she whispered, echoing humanity's operating principle throughout the Concordat. Behind her, the facility transformed once again, holographic disguises fading as the real work resumed, preparing the first generation of humanity's enhanced children for their eventual integration into Concordat society, where they would assume positions of quiet influence while appearing entirely ordinary. The evolution had begun. Sarah Chen checked her reflection in the polished surface of the maintenance cart. Her uniform, deliberately plain and slightly ill-fitting, marked her as part of the invisible workforce that kept Proxima Commercial Hub functioning. Her face was unremarkable, designed to be forgotten moments after being seen. Perfect. She adjusted her standard-issue filtration mask and nodded to her team. All 5 were graduates of Alpha Facility's first enhancement cohort, now in their early 20s. Their genetic modifications were invisible to the naked eye and undetectable by standard Concordat security scans. Remember, she sub-vocalized through their secure neural link, minimal enhancement signatures until the system triggers. They acknowledge with imperceptible nods as they push their carts toward the central ventilation hub. Security cameras tracked their movement, but the Gorek guards paid them no attention. Human maintenance crews were fixtures in the background, seen but not noticed. In the diplomatic chambers 1 level above, representatives from 37 species gathered for the Centennial Trade Conference. The Zixeri trade minister was mid-speech, extolling the virtues of the Concordat's tiered economic system. Through measured advancement of developing species, he proclaimed, we ensure stability and growth without market disruption. Sarah's team reached the ventilation hub and began their authorized maintenance routine. As they worked, one technician discreetly replaced a standard air filter with a specially designed unit. The new filter contained nanoscale particles programmed to activate upon remote signal, particles that would release CT-117, a neurotoxin specifically engineered to affect non-human physiologies. Filtration maintenance complete, Sarah reported to station control. Proceeding to secondary systems check. The board Pellerin controller acknowledged without looking up from his entertainment feed. Sarah's team moved methodically through the station, placing themselves at strategic points near emergency equipment and escape routes. The timer in Sarah's neural implant counted down. 3 minutes. Humanity has proven itself a diligent junior member of the Concordat. The Zixeri minister continued above. Their modest contributions to our collective prosperity demonstrate their potential for eventual advancement to secondary economic status. 2 minutes. Sarah's team activated their enhanced physiological systems, subtle changes that would allow them to function in the toxic environment to come. Their lung tissues adapted, blood chemistry altered, and neural pathways reconfigured to resist the effects of CT-117. 1 minute. Team positions confirmed. Sarah subvocalize. Extraction routes mapped. Target priority list loaded. 30 seconds. In the ventilation hub, the modified filter began its programmed sequence. Imperceptible to the station's monitoring systems, CT-117 entered the air circulation system. 0. The first Gorak guard collapsed mid-stride, massive body crashing to the floor. Across the diplomatic chambers, confusion erupted as delegates began choking and collapsing. The Merzak telepaths screamed as they sensed the sudden panic and fear cascading through the station. Emergency systems failing, reported station control. Lockdown initiated. Sarah's team sprang into action. Moving with controlled urgency, quick but not inhumanly fast, they began rescuing high-value targets according to their priority list. Sarah herself located the Zixeri council leader, who was gasping for breath as his respiratory system shut down. "Help is here, Exalted One," she said, slipping an emergency respirator over his face. The respirator delivered the antidote along with oxygen, quickly stabilizing his condition. Throughout the station, human maintenance workers emerged as unlikely heroes. Their simple filtration masks, secretly enhanced with technology derived from Vexeri atmospheric processors, allowed them to function where security forces had fallen. Station cameras recorded everything. Humans dragging important officials to safety, bypassing locked security doors with maintenance codes, performing emergency medical procedures with unexpected skill. The footage would be analyzed extensively in the coming days, but would reveal nothing beyond extraordinary human resilience and bravery. As the emergency subsided, Sarah administered a final dose of stabilizing medication to the Zixeri leader. "You're safe now, Exalted One," she assured him. The ancient alien studied her with newfound respect. "Your species is remarkably resistant," he observed. Sarah lowered her eyes and practiced humility. "Merely fortunate," exalted one. "Our simple filtration technology was adequate for this particular toxin." What neither mentioned was the impossibility of that coincidence, that human respiratory protection designed for basic particulates had somehow shielded them from a sophisticated neurotoxin that had incapacitated the most advanced species in the Concordat. The first public demonstration of humanity's transformation had been witnessed by the entire galactic community, and not a single observer recognized what they had seen. Lakshmi Williams sipped her tea as she watched the holographic displays tracking cargo ships across Concordat space. Her office in the headquarters of Unity Shipping Corporation was modest by alien standards, a deliberate choice to maintain the appearance of a small but growing human business. The reality was far different. "The hegemony has attacked all 3 targets precisely as predicted," reported her chief operations officer, Michael Jung. "Concordat forces are responding exactly according to Simulation Alpha 7. Lakshmi nodded, unsurprised. The quantum neural supercomputer beneath Deimos Colony had calculated these outcomes with 97.4% accuracy. The hegemony's attack patterns, the Concordat's military response, and the subsequent chaos in shipping lanes had all been anticipated months ago. "And our competitors?" she asked. "Zixari Interstellar has lost 14 vessels in the past week. Drivax Cargo Collective reports 23 ships captured or destroyed. Their stock values have dropped 63 and 71% respectively." Lakshmi allowed herself a small smile. "And ours? All ships proceeding without incident. Our human risk assessment protocols are being lauded as unexpectedly sophisticated. 3 major investment houses have upgraded our rating." The door chimed, announcing the arrival of her next appointment, a delegation from the Concordat Economic Advisory Board. Lakshmi quickly adjusted her demeanor, adopting the slightly nervous, eager-to-please persona expected of a human executive meeting with superior galactic authorities. Honored advisors, she greeted them with a respectful bow. "Unity Shipping is humbled by your attention." The lead advisor, a Pelleran named Trin, wasted no time. "Your company's performance during this crisis defies statistical probability, Executive Williams. Your vessels navigate pirate-infested regions without incident while established carriers suffer catastrophic losses." Lakshmi blinked rapidly, as if intimidated. "We've simply been fortunate, exalted advisor. And perhaps our routes being considered less desirable has worked in our favor. Pirates target the more valuable Zixari shipments first." "Yet your contingency planning documents," another advisor interjected, "developed months before the crisis, outline protocols specifically designed for the current situation." With practiced humility, Lakshmi activated a presentation showing dozens of contingency plans. "Human history is filled with conflict and disruption, honored ones. We plan for thousands of scenarios. This happened to be one of them." The meeting continued for another hour, with Lakshmi providing plausible explanations for Unity's success. When the advisors departed, they remained suspicious but lacked concrete evidence of impropriety. Once alone, Lakshmi contacted the boardroom of Zixari Interstellar Transport, where the company's executives were engaged in emergency discussions about their impending bankruptcy. "Distinguished board members," she began, her tone respectfully sympathetic. "Unity Shipping wishes to offer assistance during this difficult time." The Zixari CEO, his scales dull with stress, regarded her with a mixture of desperation and disdain. "What could your small company possibly offer, human?" "A partnership," Lakshmi replied smoothly. "We would acquire controlling interest in your company in exchange for an immediate capital infusion. Your management would remain in advisory positions, of course." Similar conversations occurred across Concordat space as human-owned businesses offered generous assistance to failing alien corporations. Within weeks, companies that had been minor players in the galactic economy became controlling stakeholders in major industries. In her private office later that night, Lakshmi received a secure transmission from Earth. Phase 6 proceeding ahead of schedule, she reported. Economic integration accelerated by approximately 78%. The Concordat still perceives our actions as opportunistic business practices rather than coordinated strategy. The response was brief. Maintain acceleration. The window of opportunity exceeds projections. Lakshmi ended the transmission and studied the latest acquisition proposals. The beauty of their strategy lay in its perfect camouflage. In a capitalist system, aggressive business practices were not only expected but admired. The Concordat species could hardly complain about humans succeeding through the very economic principles they had established. By the time they realized that economic power was merely one facet of humanity's multidimensional strategy, the ownership structures of the galaxy's key industries would be irrevocably altered. They were no longer merely infiltrating the system, they were becoming the system. Sarah Chen stood at the back of the grand reception hall on Zixuri Prime, maintaining the perfect posture of a junior diplomatic attaché. Her formal attire, designed according to human diplomatic protocols that the Concordat had generously suggested 30 years earlier, marked her as low-ranking and inconsequential. 30 years of integration, 30 years of patience, 30 years of preparation. Admiral Caro, now Grand Diplomat Caro, addressed the assembled dignitaries from his elevated podium. His scales had dulled with age, but his mandibles still clicked with the same condescension she had studied in historical recordings of first contact. The Human Integration Program stands as a testament to Concordat wisdom, he proclaimed. From a war-ravaged primitive species to productive galactic citizens in mere decades, they have found their appropriate place in our cosmic order. Sarah's enhanced hearing caught the dismissive undertones, the subtle inflections that communicated his true message to the Zixuri elites. These humans remain exactly where they belong, beneath us. Through her neural implant, Sarah maintained constant communication with the 17 other enhanced humans scattered throughout the reception. All were positioned according to the plan developed years earlier, each within optimal distance of high-value targets. Status. She subvocalized. Drelvik's signatures detected approaching from above. Came the immediate response from her security lead. Energy readings consistent with assault armor. Estimated breach in 47 seconds. Exactly as predicted by the quantum neural calculations. The separatists had taken the bait. Sarah casually stepped closer to the service corridor, where her emergency kit was hidden. Around the room, other human attendants similarly adjusted their positions without drawing attention. 30 seconds, came the update. Grand Diplomat Caro continued his speech, unaware of the impending attack. We look forward to perhaps elevating human status within the next century, should their development continue at its current satisfactory pace. 20 seconds. Sarah caught the eye of the Zixuri Council leader, the most critical protective target in the room. He glanced away immediately, dismissing her as irrelevant. 10 seconds. Throughout the room, enhanced humans activated their physiological modifications. Muscles tensed as density increased. Neural processing accelerated. Reaction times dropped to microseconds. 5, 4, 3. Sarah reached beneath her ceremonial sash, fingers brushing against the molecular blade hidden there. 2, 1. The ceiling exploded inward as Drelvik separatists in powered armor crashed into the reception hall. Their initial barrage caught the Concordat security forces completely unprepared, killing dozens instantly. Chaos erupted as diplomats scrambled for cover. A Drelvik commander took aim at the Zixuri Council leader, energy weapon charging with a distinctive whine. Sarah moved. Enhanced muscles launched her across the room in a leap no unmodified human could achieve. Time seemed to slow as her neural enhancements processed visual data at superhuman speeds. She intercepted the energy blast with her forearm, specially modified dermal layers, absorbing and dissipating the heat that would have vaporized normal flesh. In one fluid motion, She drove her molecular blade through the attacker's reinforced armor and into his central nerve cluster. The blade vibrated at frequencies specifically calibrated to disrupt Drelvic neural patterns. Throughout the hall, other human attendants moved with similar impossible speed and precision. A service worker snapped the neck of a Drelvic with bare hands. A human translator caught an energy weapon in midair and turned it against its owner. The Zixari council leader stared in shock as Sarah positioned herself protectively before him. What are you?" he managed to ask. Sarah met his gaze directly, a breach of protocol that now seemed utterly insignificant. For the first time in 30 years of diplomatic service, she didn't lower her eyes in deference. "We are what we've always been," she replied calmly. "You just never bothered to look closely enough." Across the room, Grand Diplomat Caro watched in horrified understanding as the masks finally fell. The primitive species had evolved right before their eyes, hidden in plain sight through decades of calculated misdirection. And now, it was too late to stop them. 35 years after Earth joined the Galactic community, the Concordat Council convened an emergency session. The chamber, once organized according to strict hierarchical protocols, now featured a circular arrangement, a small but significant change demanded by the human delegation. Ambassador Elena Kowalski, once a humble laboratory cleaner and now Earth's chief representative, stood at the center of the chamber. Her unenhanced appearance was a deliberate choice, a reminder that humanity's strength derived from more than physical modifications. "The events at the diplomatic reception have raised concerns," began the Zixari council leader, his tone carefully neutral, "specifically regarding capabilities your species appears to have. Concealed." "Not concealed, distinguished one," Elena replied. "Simply not demonstrated until necessary. There is a difference." The Peloran representative vibrated with agitation. "Your operatives displayed impossible physical capabilities. Your diplomatic staff neutralized armed attackers with their bare hands." "Capabilities you chose not to see," Elena corrected gently. "Your species cataloged human DNA but never questioned why our seemingly inefficient design persisted through evolution. You documented our social structures but never wondered how a species could advance from stone tools to spaceflight in a mere 10,000 years, while your civilizations took 100,000. She activated a holographic display that filled the chamber. It showed thousands of data points representing human operatives throughout Concordat space, in maintenance crews, administrative positions, service roles, and advisory capacities. "For 35 years, we have been everywhere," she continued, "watching, learning, adapting. We have had access to every critical system, every classified database, every secure facility, not through hacking or espionage, but because you gave us that access, never considering we might understand what we were seeing." The display shifted to show 23 red dots positioned around the chamber, enhanced humans currently present in the council chamber, each within striking distance of a major Concordat leader. "We could have taken control at any time," Elena stated, her voice matter-of-fact. "Instead, we chose to build something better." The chamber erupted in protests and threats. The Dravak's military representative slammed his massive fist on the council table. "This is an act of war. Our forces will." "Will what?" Elena interrupted, her calm unbroken. "Attack human worlds where we've had decades to prepare. Target our operatives who are integrated throughout your own forces. Your tactical systems were designed by companies we now control. Your ships are maintained by crews that include our people." She deactivated the holographic display with a gesture. "But that's not why you won't attack. You won't attack because we're not your enemy. We never have been." From her pocket, Elena withdrew a small data crystal and placed it on the central platform. It projected a new document, a revised Concordat charter. "We propose a genuine cooperative," she explained. "One that eliminates the tiered membership system and recognizes the unique contributions of all species. One that doesn't consign newly discovered civilizations to centuries of subservience before granting them full participation." As the council members studied the document in stunned silence, an elderly Admiral Curro approached Alina. His once vibrant scales had faded to a pale blue, and his movements were stiff with age. "You were predators all along," he whispered, finally understanding. Alina smiled gently. "No, Admiral. We were prey for most of our history. We evolved on a world where almost everything could kill us. We survived through cooperation, innovation, and understanding our predators better than they understood themselves." She gestured to the revised charter glowing between them. "That's why we're not here to conquer. We're here to change a system built on dominance into one built on genuine cooperation. That's the true power humanity brings to the stars." Across the chamber, species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia now faced a choice: adapt to a new order or fade into irrelevance. One by one, representatives approached the platform. The Velvet Conquest was complete. Humanity hadn't needed to fire a shot to reshape the galaxy. They had simply needed to be underestimated long enough to become indispensable. The galaxy never saw it coming, until it was already accomplished.